um, at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is Aeriel, and he'll be sharing his experience on step one. Please help me welcome Aeriel.
Thank you. Aeriel, alcoholic addict. Um, it's important that step one, because without that step you can't do anything. You have to admit to yourself that that battle's done, that you can't fight it no more. You can't win it. But it also has to do with denial. I lived in denial for so many years of my life, thinking that I had a grip on things. Even as a child, my father was an alcoholic, and we watched him, me and my brother watched him live a lie, like constantly doing the same thing, uh, you know, situation after situation. And sure enough, when, uh, when me and my brother got old enough, we started engaging in the same activity. We started drinking and using at an early age. Um, yeah, it started from young. I'm not gonna go into all the deep war stories, but I lived in New York, and everything was fully accessible there, and things, and that's what we started doing. We started like drinking and getting high at a young age, and then as I got older, I met a woman, and she was in the same situation. So it's funny because you choose to ignore the signs that are there. Like, you know where you're heading, and you know we all have that inner voice that tells us that our life is completely in shambles. But as you continue to drink and use, it muffles that voice. You don't hear it anymore, and you just start living this life of denial, that you just think that you're just doing what you're doing and it's not affecting anybody. Um, she had a child when I met her, and I decided that I was gonna take that, uh, be with her and take that responsibility, which was another lie to myself, because I couldn't even take care of myself, and I was ready to get into a relationship where there was a kid involved. And the thing is, the lies keep building up, the denial, the these things that you think that you could do that you can't, because it's not until you admit fully that you can't. But I've been in the program for a long time, uh, in and out of the program. My first real battle with trying to stop was, I got into some trouble and I ended up in drug court. And I remember that time very vividly, because I was there with Andy Reid's son. He was in the program too. And it was one of those situations that they said, look, if you don't stop doing this, you're going to go to jail, or you could do this program and try to fix your life. And you always know when you're entering something wholeheartedly or not doing it entirely. You when you have step things, it doesn't work out. You have to commit yourself entirely. But I got into that program, and I was doing well. But she became my wife, and she was my wife at the time, and she was still doing the same things that she was doing. So I remember they told me, they said, look, you're gonna have to leave your family situation and move somewhere else. And I'm thinking to myself, I was like, I can't do that. Like, that's crazy. They said, well, the truth of the matter is if you stay there, you're gonna end up doing the same thing again. So you need to get out of there. So I listened to those people, and I did that. I moved out. Of course, it wasn't good on the relationship, but the relationship wasn't good to begin with, because we were both doing the same thing, and I worked that program, but I didn't work it to my full ability. I was clean for about, I would say, 9 months, and then I ended up messing up. I ended up relapsing, or doing the same thing again. Then I went back into the program. I remember that day. I I was doing well, and then I went back home, and I ended up getting involved back into the same thing. And then in that program, you had to see the judge. He would call people up, and we'd be like, okay, so this is what happened. You did this, and I was right at the end of the program. Like, I was about to finish that program, and I remember he told me, he said, you know what's gonna happen now to you? I said, what? He said, we're gonna start you back to day one of the program. And he's like, there's the door. If you wanna leave, leave. You go do whatever you have to deal with. And I decided that I was gonna go to the program again. It wasn't easy because that program is a hard program. It's not just going to meetings. They really monitor you and keep you under surveillance. But I did the program and I finished. But I wish I could say that that was where my story ended, and that I maintained sobriety throughout all the years. That wasn't the case. I had two more kids. I got a total of three kids. I got two daughters and a son that I raised. And I went back to that relationship after that program and picked up right where I left off at. Same thing. A life of punishment, and you go through a lot of pain during that time. And sometimes I think about it now, and I think back, and I don't think I would have changed a lot of things that happened, because it made me the person I am today. It made me appreciate life more now than ever, because it's true what they say: pain makes you grow. You have to suffer in order to come. I had to really suffer so much that I was beaten into a submission. That's where all those catchy saying come in: surrender to win. You gotta give up that. I I um I had to go through constant pain and years of the same thing to finally submit to the fact that I had a problem, or that I wasn't gonna win this battle. And I could tell you the day that that happened. My marriage didn't work out, of course, not because two people that lived that way could not be together, and we ended up not being together, and that's fine and everything. Things happen for a reason. I believe things happen for a reason. But my true beginning started when I ended up homeless in Pennsylvania because I couldn't live. I didn't know how to live. You know, I couldn't hold down a job. There were so many things that I couldn't do. And those are the things that you ignore, and you gotta like really look at it and be like, my life is like totally in shambles, like it's destroyed. I went to Florida because I knew a guy over there. He told me that he was gonna help me. He had a house, and you could stay here and this and that. And I went over there, and I still wasn't ready. I ended up going over there and doing the same thing, and I ended up on the streets of Florida in Fort Lauderdale. And then finally, I was out there for a couple of days in the street, and I remember I was sitting in a bus stop on like a bench and everything. And that day I said, God, take me, do whatever you want me. I can't fight this no more. I was totally beaten into submission, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And that's what step one is about. It's about you finally realizing that this battle, I'm not gonna win it. I can't fight it anymore. I give up. Surrender to win. So that day something happened on that bus stop. Like I told God to take me. And the next day I ended up in a sober house because some guy a day before told me, he's like, look, he didn't know me. This guy didn't know me from a hole in the wall. He saw me at the bus stop. He said, look, if you need help, there's a place you could go. He told me briefly. I didn't write it down, but I remembered it that next day. And I went to that sober house, and that's when some real changes started taking place. Like, there was a good group of guys there. I started working the program, and like I said, we started with step one, and I admitted that I was like, I couldn't do it anymore. I was living in denial. You know, there's truths and there's absolute truth. The absolute truth is when you really come to terms with yourself and look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I need to make a change. I need to change my life. And that's where that mental twist comes about. And you realize that your life has to change. But that's an opening of a door. Because when that door opens, you're free to live you start living life in a better way, and you start learning new things about yourself, and it's a process takes place when you finally cross that threshold of step one, and you say, now that I admitted that this is a problem and I can't beat it, now I'm gonna work to improve my life. Well, I started working the steps right away, and things started happening for me. Like my life started to change. I had a good sponsor. This sponsor, he opened my eyes to so many things, like spirituality, and you know, he was just a very smart guy when it came to the program. He knew exactly, and he kind of took me under his wing, and that man changed my life too. You know, I never thought that I could have a relationship with a strange man that I met. You know what I mean? But this guy became like a father figure. Like he really changed my life. He opened my eyes up, and I started. It wasn't until I worked the fourth step that I really started to see things in a different perspective. When I was that person that I blamed my my addiction on everybody, my parents, my mother, my sister, everybody. I was like, I do this because of them. That was a lie. I was living that lie. I used to not take responsibility for my own actions. And it's not till now that I look at back then, and I was like, I was really like living in a fog. Like I didn't know I just blamed everybody else for my own problems. But when you start taking responsibility for your own problems, a lot of things change, and when that happens. So I worked the fourth step, and I remember when I worked the fourth step, it was like a boulder was lifted off my shoulder when my sponsor broke it down to me. He said, your parents, you know, they weren't the greatest parents. I see that he said, maybe they did the best job they could with what life dealt to them. Maybe you need to forgive them for you to move on. And he was right, because even though I came to terms with the fact that I was responsible for my own actions, I still had a lot of unforgiveness in me, and I had to let those things go for me to move on. And when you do that, it's like all this weight is lifted off of you, you know. Um, you know, I'm gonna put my life out there. I live with somebody now that is going through alcoholism, and I see it every day. I see it firsthand, and I see the denial that, you know, when you try to talk to this person, they don't want to listen. They don't want to hear anything. And us being in the program, you know, when somebody's not ready or ready to hear something, they don't want to hear it. And sometimes I think those are God's ways of showing you that you can see firsthand how that affects another person. And of course, my heart goes out to that person. You know, I'm invested. I care. But it's I guess what I'm trying to say is such a shame when you see somebody living a lie, and you can see it for what it is, and you can't do anything about it, and you can't help that person, and you lived that way at one point. What all that stuff does, it gave me experience. So it gave me experience in, I have a friend now that I work closely with. Like he just got into the program. He calls me, we talk. I tell him from my experience what I went through, and I give him some suggestions or perspective. I I mean I just I'm gonna tell you how my life has changed. I lived in a recovery house in Hatfield for a while because I lost everything twice. Everything. I mean everything. Picture albums, everything. And then at that recovery house, I really started to dig into the program like deep. I told myself, I'm either gonna give myself entirely to this or I'm not gonna do it. So I did. I gave myself entirely to it, and I started saving money. I got my own place. I bought a car. I went to a job. I started a job, and now they put me in a position of leadership where I could work the program there because these people respect me, and I treat them with respect, dignity, like I want to be treated, and I also try to be at service as much as possible in and out the program. In the program, and people that I work with, if they need help with something, they need a ride, this and that, because I lived a life of selfishness for so many years, just only thinking about myself. And it's true what they say in this program that when you do for others, that you get a good feeling doing that. It helps you. It does. It gives you a sense of gratitude. You're grateful. I mean, who would have thought that a person like me that was one point like that I could be helping others and doing other things and being a blessing to be a blessing to others. So I got a good relationship with my daughters. Today, my daughter called me and asked me to watch my grandson. Those things would have never happened before. They would have never happened. You know, you become this person that people come to. Like, they see you work in the program and it radiates out of you. You know, I'm a believer. You know, I know everybody has a different higher power, but I believe in God, and God has done so many things for me in my life that I'm so grateful that there's times I'm driving home and I think about the fact that I could never go back to that life. I mean, I know we can never say never, but I know today that I don't ever want to live that life again because my life has changed so dramatically. I live in the truth today. I know that it's true that if I go have a drink or go engage in any activity, that I'm just gonna end up right back where I was. But the admiration and the love and the way people feel for you now. How could you be so selfish to take yourself out of that equation when these people, I never, me personally, I never went to jail. I mean, and a lot of people wonder how I pulled that off. You know what I mean? but, um, but what I was gonna say was, damn, I forgot my train of thought. Um, yeah, I never suffered a lot of consequences, but I, I'm just grateful today. I really am grateful. I mean, sometimes you don't have the words to explain it, you know. But I'm working the program in my life now. That how they say you work these steps in everything you do. I do. If I treat somebody unfairly, I apologize for my behavior. I could look at my behavior today and I could question my motives, and anything that I do, I always look at those things. I'm like, I want this. Why do I want this? I got to question my motive. Is it a selfish motive, or so? Step one is the beginning of. That's why they put it as step one, because it's the beginning of a life changing event that it takes place in your life that is priceless. Like some of the things I've done, I can't even explain it. Like I don't even know how I got to a certain point or how this happened and everything. But I was talking to the guy I talked to. He's my friend, and he knew me. He knew me during my addiction, and we were talking about being good people. And he was like, "You was a good person then." He was like, "You wasn't a bad person. You just was doing what you was doing." But he's like, he said you were still a good person because you try to help other people. But I guess I'm gonna end it by saying that I'm truly grateful today to be here and speaking here and doing what I'm doing and I'm grateful for my life today, and thank you for letting me share.